covering climate, weather, and the industrial enterprise from Penn State Meteorology. Here is Up in the Air.
Welcome to this week's episode of Up in the Air. I'm Ryan Gold.
And I'm Mike Susko.
So Halloween just passed on Wednesday, and if you could dress up as any weather icon, what would it be?
I would pick a tornado.
A tornado? I would pick a hurricane.
Well, Ryan, that's interesting because this week we have a story on hurricanes, also the Arctic and volcanoes.
All that and more, but first, update in the air. The best part about fall is the vibrant colors on the trees, but there has been a lack of color in many areas south of New England in the northeast of the United States. The regions south of New England were affected by a very wet summer and fall, and they also experienced unseasonably high temperatures all the way until mid-October. This contributed to the dull fall colors. Warm and wet weather extends the growing season and keeps the leaves in a green state. This results in the normal breakdown of the green pigment known as chlorophyll to be either delayed or not occur at all. This region is now starting to experience frost at night, and when the frost hits green leaves, they usually go straight from green to brown. While certain species of trees are better at producing fall colors, and some will still exhibit beautiful fall foliage, many trees will still have green or dull colors this fall.
As we head into the month of November, it is difficult not to think about the upcoming winter. Bone-chilling cold, snow, and ice are nothing new to the northeastern United States, but did the last few winters seem colder or snowier to you? Researchers from Rutgers University have found a link to colder and snowier winters in the Northeast with a relatively warm Arctic. The study says the warmer temperatures in the Arctic could lead to wild fluctuations in the jet stream, a global wave-like wind stream that in the upper atmosphere, causing cold Arctic air to move farther south. These fluctuations tend to stick around for some time, regardless if we are in the warm or cold section of the wave. Last year's extreme winter included record warm Arctic temperatures and low sea ice levels with record-breaking cold and crippling snowfalls not just in the United States, but Europe too. If you're wishing for the cold and snow this year, good news. Scientists are anticipating another warm winter for the Arctic, meaning you may just get your wish.
Skiers and snowboarders in New England are gearing up for pre-Halloween slopes as early season snowfalls have opened ski resorts across the region. Resorts in New Hampshire, Maine, and Vermont have all begun to turn on their lifts and in some cases snow machines, as lower than usual October temperatures allowed for autumnal winter fun. While the early opening is great for tourists and the resorts now, the warm ground might make snow accumulation difficult to maintain for the rest of the fall until heavier snowfall comes in the winter. While the entire resort and every trail available won't be open until December, they are still happy to start their lifts for the skiers and snowboarders who want to get the longest ski season possible.
Flash flooding is a huge concern for many communities across the country, and according to a new study, humans are making things worse. A team of researchers from Columbia University were able to demonstrate how runoff extremes have been dramatically increasing because of climate change and human-induced changes. Precipitation intensity is expected to rise because the atmosphere can hold more moisture as temperature increases. While climate change is influencing temperature and precipitation patterns across the world, it is not the only factor. The researchers said land use, land cover changes, and water and land management, as well as vegetation changes, have changed the underlying surface conditions and hydrological feedbacks, increasing storm runoff and the risk for flash flooding, especially in heavily populated areas. For an example, a farming community will have less storm runoff than a city because soil can retain water better than concrete or blacktop. Studies like this one are important as the risk for more extreme precipitation events increases and the communities work to make the scenes like this farther and fewer between.
18 United States volcanoes have been classified by government scientists as a very high threat due to their activity and proximity to people. In the first update to the volcano threat assessment since 2005, Hawaii's Kilauea volcano, pictured here, is the most active volcano in the United States and has been erupting this year, topped the list. The rest of the top 5 consist of Mount St. Helens and Mount Rainier in Washington, Alaska's Redoubt volcano, and California's Mount Shasta. Of the top 5, Mount Rainier has the highest number of people in the downstream hazard zone of about 300,000. 11 of the 18 high-level threats are in Oregon, Washington, and California, and while we do have a supervolcano in Yellowstone, observers say that it isn't doing anything abnormal.
Every year, the National Hurricane Center releases its outlook for how active the season will be. A main factor in that prediction, though, is the climate phenomenon known as a La Niña. A La Niña occurs when we got these strong trade winds here blowing across the equatorial Pacific, and it causes more rain in Indonesia and Australia. What happens here, though, is that the ocean waters will then go down to the deeper ocean and circulate back towards Peru and Ecuador. What happens there is that the water will rise, but it's not warm, and it actually decreases the amount of precipitation we see in that area. So Ecuador and Peru will see a drier period. In the Atlantic, though, a La Niña typically leads to more frequent tropical storms and hurricanes, increasing the risk for landfall. However, more storms do not mean more landfalls. A first-of-its-kind study, though, may have found a correlation between the frequency of landfalls in the Atlantic and the Indian monsoon. According to the study, a strong monsoon season in India can produce easterly winds that push the Atlantic storms westward, increasing landfall risk. This is because the Indian monsoon influences the northern Atlantic subtropical high, which pushes more storms towards the America the stronger it is. With this new information, scientists and forecasters hope to increase accuracy in seasonal forecasting and predicting landfalling hurricanes farther out into the future. Welcome back to the show. We now have a package on the Weather Enterprise and AccuWeather by Patrick Wright.
The weather is one of the few forces in the world that can impact every aspect of our lives. Our daily routines, economies, and leisure are all affected by the weather in some shape or form. With such a vast impact and such a massive potential, the need for accurate communication and dissemination of weather information is key in the 21st century and beyond. I spoke with Marshall Moss, the Vice President of Forecasting and Graphics Operations at AccuWeather, to get a snapshot to see how the industry and the company work.
The National Research Council, part of the National Science Foundation, described the weather enterprise as having three branches: the academic, public, and private sectors. The academic sector, which includes universities, was said to focus more on research, tools, modeling, and new data information. The public sector, including the National Weather Service, is traditionally responsible for models, observations, data assimilation, and public warnings, while the private sector, with companies like AccuWeather and the Weather Company, tailor forecasts for private entities, historical data, and serve as major communicators for government warnings, all of which have a common goal to save lives and property. The average person gathers their weather information from a smartphone app or a TV meteorologist within the private industry. When it comes to TV meteorology, the weatherman has been the staple of a newscast for over 50 years, delivering the information people are looking for to make their daily plans. Along with a local meteorologist, the average consumer has access to 3 national networks dedicated to the weather topic: AccuWeather Network, the Weather Channel, and Weather Nation. This aspect of the industry has seen some contraction with the invention and availability of weather apps, but also the availability of internet streaming services. This has forced some of the national networks to begin developing new avenues to deliver live and local weather information through a service known as over-the-top. This programming is essentially a mini version of the channel, offered to customers cutting the cord. The over-the-top product is expected to see the most growth in the future as online streaming services become more mainstream. On the other hand, the smartphone apps and websites related to weather have become a very large source for quick and easy information when it comes to the weather. According to Marshall Moss, the AccuWeather outlets reach an estimated 2 billion devices each day. The main draw is obviously the forecast, so how does it get created and sent out to so many locations and devices? At AccuWeather, the company works with 50 different weather organizations around the globe, pulling data from each of their satellite and radar networks, models, and observations, including an in-house weather model that AccuWeather owns. This data is then sent into AccuWeather's computer system, where it is ingested and eventually sending out a forecast to the desired city. In some cases, the information needs to be tweaked by a team of nearly 100 meteorologists at AccuWeather, who have the final say in the forecast. In the future, people can look forward to more hyperlocal information to help people make decisions on specific activities. To the surprise of many, the communication of weather information reaches far beyond the local TV meteorologist and a smartphone app. Weather impacts every facet of our lives, from agriculture, transportation, and consumer purchasing habits on Main Street and Wall Street. These organizations range from insurance, airlines, grocery stores, shopping centers, shipping, and many more companies. AccuWeather alone serves 245 Fortune 500 companies and thousands of smaller companies, all requiring tailored forecasts and services for their individual needs. The communication of the weather is as vital as ever to our lives through our economy, activities, and safety. Every day, strides are being made by innovators to get people the weather information they require in order to satisfy the needs of the 21st century citizen and to protect life and property. For Up in the Air, I'm Patrick Wright.
Welcome back to the show. So, Mike, we had that coastal system creep its way through our weekend last weekend. Did that really affect your football experience in any way?
Unfortunately, Ryan, it did. It made it where my friends and I could not go to the tailgates that we were planning, and we ended up not going to the football game because it was just wet and disgusting outside. But we did get the win, which is a bit different from the past couple home games.
Oh, yeah, it's great to have a win, especially when you're at home. But we now go to Kasey at the Climate Wall. Kasey, do you have anything interesting for us?
Thanks, Mike and Ryan. Looking at the almanac data for today, November 1st, average high of 56 degrees with an average low of 37. Let's take a look at that record high and low, warm one, 75 back in 1982 and a brisk low of 18 back in 1923. Temperature outlook for November 6th through November 12th. I don't think we've seen this yet this season. There are no below normal temperatures forecasted for this time range, but let's look out into the West Coast. Above normal for a great majority of California, down into Arizona, and just peaking its way into New Mexico. Southeast above normal too. Great majority of Florida will be above normal, as well as the rest of the southeastern states. And that will be the same case for up in the northeast, New England, for Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, and into New York. And it is creeping its way into our area. Will be above normal for State College as well. The temperature outlook, though, West Coast below normal, and a great majority of the country will be above normal, especially to the west of the Mississippi. We will see those greater concentrated areas of above normal precip outlook. Drought monitor right now, said it once again, I'll say it again, not much has changed. Still off in the West Coast, definitely concentrated in this Four Corner region, and no drought up here in Pennsylvania and the Northeast. A fall foliage map, finally. Peak color here in Pennsylvania, just making our way to peak color down in central and southeastern Pennsylvania. For our weekend forecast, it's going to be a beautiful fall weekend. Temperatures in the lower 50s. We will have some peaks of sunshine here and there. So Mike and Ryan, it will be a great weekend to get outdoors, maybe head over to the Arboretum and see those fall decorations.
Thanks, Kasey. I am certainly glad that we aren't having any rain, at least for this weekend. It'd be nice to get some of that sun.
Yes, I'm very excited to not have any precipitation this weekend.
All right, well, that's all we have time for this week. I'm Mike Susko.
And I'm Ryan Gold.
We'll see you next time up in the air.